Hey everyone, welcome to my kitchen. I recently came upon a recipe for apple cider donut cake. And when I saw it, the first thing I thought about was that time in September when the apple farms and the cider mills all open up and you can go get fresh apple cider and freshly made cider donuts. You know, those fry cakes that are all covered in sugar and cinnamon. And then I thought of Halloween parties when I was a kid. I feel like every Halloween party, we were all dressed up and there was cider and there was donuts and it was delicious and it was fun. So I decided I am going to give this cake a try and see if it is as good or maybe even better than the donuts I remember. If this is your first time here, I'm Tracy Maturana. I make videos with healthy recipes, herbal remedies, simple living topics, and a little bit of yoga and meditation. If any of that sounds good to you, please subscribe to my channel so you never miss a future video. Over on the stove, I have 1.5 cups of apple cider reducing down while I start mixing up the other ingredients. In a medium bowl, I'm mixing together 1.5 cups of flour, 1.5 teaspoons baking powder, and 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. I'm setting that aside to check on my cider. I need it to reduce down to 1/2 cup. Just to note, if you try to make this, if you accidentally reduce a little further than that, you just add a splash of cider to bring it back to 1/2 cup. Then I'm pouring a little bit back into the pan, and we'll come back to that later. I'm just leaving 1/3 cup of cider in the measuring cup. Now moving on, in a large bowl, I'm adding 2/3 cup of sugar and a couple of eggs, and then whisking that together until it's pale and a little foamy. To that, I'm adding 2/3 cup of sour cream. Now you might also notice in the background a small saucepan on the stove. In there is 1 stick of melted butter that has cooled just a little bit. I'm adding that into the sugar and egg mixture along with about 1.25 teaspoon of freshly ground nutmeg, a teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and that 1/3 cup of the reduced cider. Once that's all blended together, I'm adding in the dry ingredients and then prepping the pan. The recipe called for an 8-inch square metal pan, and the notes said that the metal is necessary because a glass pan won't heat it as evenly. I don't have a metal square pan, so I'm using a metal springform pan. The recipe also calls for both oil and parchment, which leads me to think this cake might be a little sticky. I'm not going to use the parchment. I'm just going to make sure I grease up my pan really well with spray oil. I'm baking this cake for about 30 minutes at 350 degrees. And while the cake cooks, I'm going to clean up my mess. That is one bad thing about this recipe. It does seem to use a lot of dishes. Once the cake is done baking, I'm allowing it to cool for about 15 minutes on a wire rack, and then I'm removing the pan to let it cool a little more. And while the cake is cooling, I'm making this cider glaze. So I'm coming back to that remaining apple cider, remember, that I left in the pan. I'm adding 2 tablespoons of butter, letting that melt a little bit, and then adding 2 tablespoons of sugar. That all heats up. I'm whisking it together until it becomes sort of thick and bubbly. And then I'm adding that to the top of the cake. I'm using my spatula to just spread it around, making sure I cover the complete top. And finally, I mix up some sugar and cinnamon, about a couple tablespoons of sugar and a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, mixing that together, and then I'm sprinkling that over the top so you get that nice cinnamon and sugar coating that is my favorite part of the donut. And gosh, that looks good. The cake is done and it looks delicious, but what do we think? Is it better than the actual donuts? At least as good? Let's find out. Okay, for one, it is delicious. And for two, it really does taste like those donuts. It is amazing. And yeah, this is a keeper recipe for certain. Be sure to try it yourself. You can find the complete recipe down in the description box. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day.